The 8th Ordinary Session of the Heads of State and Government of the member countries of the Liptako-Gourma Integrated Development Authority was held by videoconference on the Friday of July 11, 2025. Under the chairmanship of Army General Abdourahamane Tchiani, President of the Republic of Niger and current President of the Liptako-Gourma Integrated Development Authority, with the participation of the President of Burkina Faso Captain Ibrahim Traore, and Mali's Army General Assimi Goita, who is also the current president of the Alliance of Sahel States Confederation. It was a meeting focused on structural transformation and the strengthening of the sub-regional integration, whose aim was to strengthen solidarity, accelerate integrated development and pool responses to common challenges, with one of the major points on the agenda being the transformation of the authority into an executing agency for development projects within the Alliance of Sahel States Confederation, as well as its integration into the institutional architecture of the AES. But perhaps to this far, you may not have understood much of what I've just said, and are probably wondering what the Liptako-Gourma Integrated Development Authority is, and if it's an entity that is different from the now popular Alliance of Sahel States Confederation. If that is the case, then you are not alone, because plenty of other people out there find these two Sahel entities quite confusing, especially the LGA, and it is for this reason that we have created this video to enlighten the public on the Liptako-Gourma Integrated Development Authority, and its relation to the Alliance of Sahel States Confederation. So first things first, perhaps everyone's question is that, what is the Liptako-Gourma Integrated Development Authority, and is it different from the Alliance of Sahel States Confederation? The Liptako-Gourma Integrated Development Authority, whose popular acronyms are LGA, or ALG, and the Alliance of Sahel States Confederation, whose popular acronym is the AES Confederation, are two distinct entities, with different purposes, structures and timelines, although they both involve the same three countries, that is Mali, Niger and Burkina Faso, and are centered on the Liptako-Gourma region. The Liptako-Gourma Integrated Development Authority, LGA, also known as Autorité de Liptako-Gourma, ALG, was established on December 3, 1970, to promote the development of mineral, energy, hydraulic and agricultural resources in the border regions of Mali, Niger and Burkina Faso. The LGA was created following recommendations from an interdisciplinary mission of the United Nations Development Programme, organized at the request of the River Niger Commission, now the Niger Basin Authority, and the founding presidents of the member states in 1970 were as follows. President Moussa Traore, who was the president of Mali at the time, having come to power through a military coup in 1968, President Hamani Diori, the first president of Niger, who had been in office since Niger's independence in 1960, and President Sangalé Lamazana, who was the president of Upper Volta, the current Burkina Faso, having assumed power through a military coup in 1966. These leaders oversaw the establishment of the LGA, which was headquartered in Ouagadougou, the capital city of Burkina Faso, with the goal of fostering regional cooperation to develop the semi-arid Sahel region covering 370,000 square kilometers across the three countries. Over the years, the LGA has significantly evolved and undergone changes that reflect the region's growing need to address interconnected challenges of security, poverty, climate change and governance instability, and the following is a highlight of those key changes. The LGA was created to promote integrated development of mineral, energy, hydraulic, agricultural, pastoral and fisheries resources in the Liptako-Gourma region, which spans 19 provinces of Burkina Faso, 4 administrative regions of Mali and 2 departments plus an urban community in Niger. The organization focused on economic and social development, addressing the region's semi-arid Sahel environment where agriculture and livestock herding were the dominant economic activities, alongside untapped energy and mining potential. Between the 1980s and 2000s, the LGA aligned with the strategic priorities of the poverty reduction strategy papers of its member states, emphasizing poverty reduction and improved well-being of the region's populace. It thus undertook various projects that were supported by organizations like the African Development Bank, which provided technical assistance in water resources, renewable energy, earth roads, mixed farming and geographic information systems. On January 24, 2017, the LGA's mandate expanded to include security cooperation due to rising insecurity and terrorism in the Sahel. The three member states, that is Mali, Niger and Burkina Faso, agreed to form a joint task force headquartered in Niamey, Niger, with rotating leadership, to combat insecurity and terrorism. This task force was a subordinate unit of the G5 Sahel multinational force, which also included Mauritania and Chad, and which was modeled on the 2015 multinational force established by Chad, Cameroon, Niger and Nigeria to counter Boko Haram in the Lake Chad Basin. On September 16, 2023, the military leaders of Mali, Niger and Burkina Faso signed the Liptako-Gourma Charter, in which they established the Alliance of Sahel States. This mutual defense pact aimed to create a framework for collective defense and mutual assistance, allowing the use of armed force to restore security in response to aggression. The charter was a response to ongoing jihadist activities and instability in the Liptako-Gourma region, and it marked a significant evolution of the Liptako-Gourma Authority's role, from purely developmental to incorporating a strong security and defense component. Then on July 11, 2025, during this 8th ordinary session of the Conference of Heads of State of the LGA, that was held via video conference instead of a physical meeting to cut on unnecessary costs, the leaders of Burkina Faso Captain Ibrahim Traore, Mali's Army General Assimi Goita and General Abdourahamane Tchiani of Niger decided to transform the LGA into the Agency for the Execution of Development Projects and Programs of the Alliance of Sahel States Confederation. This strategic decision aimed to strengthen coordination and implementation of development initiatives within the AES Confederation, leveraging the LGA's experience in integrated and community-based development approaches. That was the brief overview of the Liptako-Gourma Integrated Development Authority. As for the Alliance of Sahel States Confederation, this is a confederation that originated as a mutual defense pact on September 16, 2023, with the aforementioned signing of the Liptako-Gourma Charter, and it was formalized as a confederation on July 6, 2024. Initially created as a mutual defense pact in response to the July 26, 2023 coup d'état in Niger and the subsequent crisis, where ECOWAS threatened a military intervention following a coup that toppled the democratically elected President Mohamed Bazoum, it has since evolved into a confederation with broader goals of regional stability, economic independence, and sovereignty, aiming to counter terrorism, external aggression and neo-colonial influences by reducing dependence on France. The Alliance of Sahel States Confederation combines military, security and economic objectives, focusing on collective defense, where the member states have an agreement that any attack on one member is considered as an attack on all, with obligations for military assistance. On the economic aspect, the AES Confederation plans for a common market, infrastructure development, a monetary union and potentially a new currency to replace the CFA franc, which is a move that will be in line with its political sovereignty ambitions that emphasizes on reducing foreign influence, particularly from France and the West, so as to foster self-reliance. Some of the major developments that have been witnessed within the AES include the January 28, 2024 withdrawal from ECOWAS, the March 2024 creation of a joint anti-terrorist force with 5,000 personnel to combat violent extremist groups, the establishment of the Confederal Bank for Investment and Development (BCID-AES) in May 2025 to finance infrastructure autonomously, the introduction of a common biometric passport, elimination of roaming charges, and plans for a joint parliament and cultural initiatives like the AES Games. So in context, the Alliance of Sahel States Confederation emerged amid regional instability, jihadist insurgencies and frustration with ECOWAS and Western partners like France, and it reflects a shift toward anti-imperialist rhetoric and new alliances, especially with Russia and China, while addressing security and economic challenges in the Liptako-Gourma region. The AES Confederation is a broader, more ambitious entity combining collective defense, economic integration and political sovereignty, with plans to evolve into a federation. Whereas the Liptako-Gourma Integrated Development Authority operates as a technocratic body that is focused on development and not tied to the political regimes of member states, the AES Confederation is driven by the three military juntas with a strong anti-neo-colonial narrative, seeking to assert sovereignty and reduce Western influence. In summary, the Liptako-Gourma Integrated Development Authority is a 1970-founded long-standing regional organization, focused on economic development and limited security cooperation in the Mali-Niger-Burkina Faso border region, while the Alliance of Sahel States Confederation, that was formed in 2023 and formalized as a confederation in 2024, is a mutual defense and integration pact with broader ambitions, including collective security, economic independence and political sovereignty. While both involve the same countries and region, their objectives, structures, and political contexts differ significantly, with the AES reflecting the current military-led government's push for regional autonomy, and the LGA being a more traditional development-focused body. Anyway, during that 8th LGA Heads of State Ordinary Session that was held on July 11, 2025, the following were some of the submissions that were made by the heads of state, with the President of Burkina Faso Captain Ibrahim Traore welcoming the progress made within the region, while noting some concerns related to the process. So listening to the Secretary, we easily understand that the authority operates. This was cited on the basis of contributions from member states, and she warned that from this month of July, only the salaries for this month of July remain, which means that perhaps contributions are not up to date, which will therefore make it possible to quickly identify what must be done to possibly maintain jobs and salaries, but she also spoke of subsidies, which is a source of concern for me. And there are the issues of loans and financial partners, which are also important points in my eyes, so we need to have several meetings with these potential experts who will be appointed to reflect on the authority's administration fund.
Important à mes yeux qu'il faille que nous ayons plusieurs réunions avec ces éventuels experts qui seront désignés pour réfléchir sur la question de la mutation de l'autorité. Parce que si je me souviens bien,
because if I remember correctly, the question of subsidies in our sub-regional organizations remains a danger in our eyes.
un danger à nos yeux. Ces subventions ne sont pas données.
These grants are not necessarily given out of friendship or for the beauty of our eyes, but very often with hidden intentions behind them. And that deserves all the thoughts on how the structure must work so that we take our full responsibilities and assume them.
Comment la structure doit fonctionner pour qu'on prenne nos responsabilités pleines et les assumer.
On his part, the Malian Transitional President Army General Assimi Goita indicated that the decision to turn the Liptako-Gourma Integrated Development Authority into a development agency within the AES marks a decisive turning point in the life of the confederal space, which is why he reaffirms his commitment to cooperation in the service of the peoples of the Alliance of Sahel States Confederation. These discussions will help determine appropriate approaches aimed at better integrating the Liptako-Gourma into the architecture of our confederation under the development axis. Is it just a simple transformation? It is the desire for change that we are celebrating today and stems from our shared desire to take into account current geopolitical realities, and also the need to adjust the structures of our organization in the face of the current challenge. And this approach will surely save us from creating additional structures whose operation and our customizations would be costly for our states. By redeveloping the existing ones while taking into account the new realities of our confederal space, we will succeed in achieving our development objectives. On his part, Army General Abdourahamane Tchiani provided further details on the process in question, that is transformation of the Liptako-Gourma Integrated Development Authority into an AES Confederation's development executing agency. The first axis is the reasons for this transformation, the second axis is the consequences, and the third axis the expectations. As for the reasons, we all know the current context marked by a new sovereignist and patriotic paradigm embodied by our confederation. This is an element to be taken into account essentially in relation to our new orientations.
à prendre en compte essentiellement par rapport à nos nouvelles orientations. Le deuxième
The second point of these reasons is the concern for the refoundation of our institutions, built on endogenous and harmonious development.
bâti sur un développement endogène et harmonieux. Nous mesurons le sens de
We understand the significance of this point when we refer to the presentation of the inventory of the Executive Secretary, where we are already faced with a cut in salary doubt already.
Déjà, nous sommes face à un couperet pour le salaire d'août, déjà. Ensuite, nous découvrons que la grande
Then we discover that the majority of subsidies are outside our confederal space. I'm talking about financial participation. So these are enormous challenges, for which this second point makes perfect sense.
Donc, c'est des défis énormes pour lesquels ce deuxième point a tout son sens. C'est la volonté.
It is the desire to free the authority of the Liptako-Gourma from administrative immobility and the influence of partners and other foreign powers, which quite often characterize some of our institutions, and which distances them from their objectives.
Certaines de nos institutions, ce qui les éloigne de leurs objectifs. Pour ce qui est des conséquences,
As for the consequences, ALG was created on December 3, 1970. It has 55 years of experience in development, cooperation, transformation, the ability to develop a local approach, support for local initiatives and stabilization of the region, and it is also an experience, as I said earlier, which reveals the weaknesses of ALG. So funding is expected mainly from outside. But our new paradigm does not allow us to continue to operate on these bases of external support.
Qui révèle les faiblesses de l'ALG, dont le financement est attendu en majorité de l'extérieur. Or, notre nouveau paradigme ne nous permet pas de continuer à fonctionner sur ces bases d'appui extérieur. Continuons la réflexion.
Let us continue to reflect so that the funding, as agreed, is endogenous.
Convenu soit endogène. Et le troisième
And the third axis is that of expectations. We know that expectations are based on the effectiveness and efficiency of the agency, make it more dynamic and in line with our current directions and challenges, ensure the appointment or appointments that respond precisely to this concern of transforming the ALG into an executive agency.
Assurer la nomination ou les nominations qui répondent justement à ce souci de transformation de l'ALG en agence d'exécution. Et enfin,
and finally, the question of personnel, which will be managed progressively at the level of the refounded ALG, following the well-established procedure within our agency.
la procédure bien établie au sein de notre agence.